Hello, it's Doris with All the Books, and I am here for my September. The month is flying by, the year is flying by. My September mid-month wrap-up, and I'm going to do my audiobooks first. And look at this amazing lighting. Just don't get used to it because it won't last. Anyway, I mean, it'll last today, but you know, tomorrow's video might be garbage. Anyway, my audiobooks, my son has graciously loaned me his iPhone. So, now this first one, I have to go ahead and tell you that you're going to have to take whatever I say with a grain of salt, because I am completely the type of person that will read history and science textbooks recreationally. So, there's that. And I lived in Honduras, and my son is half Honduran, so it holds a special spot in my heart. But yes, The Lost City of Monkey God, 5-star for Doris. Oh my gosh, this book hit all my buttons. This is a nonfiction set in Honduras, obviously. And it's the discovery of an ancient civilization in the year like 2015. Oh my gosh. Like now. And this book has everything. Okay, it's got, you know, the archaeology and the ancient civilization stuff. And it's got the jungle. I mean, I didn't even know, but La Mosquitia is the densest jungle in the world. Wow. But not only that, and the jungle animals, but it's got modern cutting-edge military technology and genetics and plagues and culture and politics and modern epidemics and, you know, drug wars. And I love this book so much. But like I said, I have a personal connection, and this is totally my jam anyway. But yeah, loved it, loved it, loved it. The next one that I finished on audio was In Other Words by Campbell, and I have been curious about her for quite some time, and I'm even more curious now. This is her first book that she wrote in Italian. Yes. Her native language is apparently Bengali, but she grew up in the U.S. and went to school in the U.S., so her written language is English. She's extremely well versed. I mean, just obviously she's a Pulitzer Prize winner. I don't even need to say this. But she has just this unique perspective, because her home language, that's it. It's only her home language, her and her parents. She's very isolated from, I don't think she experienced much of the Bengali community in the U.S. Sorry, my phone rang, so I don't know what just happened. Anyway, I mean, my phone just rang, that's what just happened. I'm in a mood today. But yeah, so she's like torn between worlds, and so now she's creating this third language world for herself with Italian. She's fallen in love with it, and listening to her speak Italian I can see why. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous language. So this was interesting. This was an essay, like I said, on her embracing Italian and living in Italy. And intellectually, I'm so curious about her now. The book itself, like the first 2/3, it was good and it was interesting. I thought she was a little bit melodramatic, to be honest. But then she didn't get into talking about the duality with her first two languages until the last third of the book. And I feel like if she had started out talking about that and let us know who she was in that respect earlier on, everything else she said wouldn't have come across as so melodramatic to me. I don't know. But anyway, I since have gotten her little teeny weeny book about book covers, and again, I just feel like she's a little bit melodramatic, but I like it. And I am way curious about her intellectually. I am dying now to read her novels, which were written in English before she began studying Italian. And just the fact that she has become this person who can write in a third language, she is amazing to me. So I'll get back to you on Jhumpa Lahiri because I will definitely be reading more of her. I think she's got 3 novels. And it's kind of weird that I ended up with her essay collections first. But anyway, I guess it's not weird because those are her 2 most recent writings. But anyway, stay tuned. Stay tuned for more on anyway, Jhumpa Lahiri, yeah. And then my other audiobook was Let's Pretend This Never Happened by Jenny Lawson. And you may recall that I listened to Jenny Lawson, was it last month? It was very recent, and I said it was a 5-star read, and it definitely was. This one, I'm just gonna say, I mean, I enjoyed it just as much for the entertainment value, definitely. But this wasn't a 5-star read, and I'm really glad that I read Furiously Happy. I should have gotten that off my shelf. I don't know where it is at the moment. It's the one with the little raccoon on the front. I'm glad I read Furiously Happy first because she's matured as a writer, and Furiously Happy has this little mousy taxidermy. Furiously Happy is just thematically so much more mature. It just says so much, like I said, about the mental health scene, for lack of a better word, in my mind at the moment. She just really speaks to mental health and attitude and embracing yourself, and it just says a lot. Furiously Happy, it says a lot. This one is more just a memoir of her growing up years through her early marriage, and being that I fell in love with Jenny Lawson and Furiously Happy, I loved it. I loved spending more time with her because she's a fabulous human being. But it is she's so crass. She's so crass. She's foul-mouthed. And yeah, it's like one of those crass, foul-mouthed stand-up comics. So if that is not your scene, Jenny Lawson's not your scene. So like I said, if I had come across this one first, I wouldn't have fallen in love with her. But being that I grabbed Furiously Happy first, I still love her. So anyway, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying if you are at all interested in Jenny Lawson, and I would highly recommend her for her mental health discussions, start with Furiously Happy. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Okay, and then my physical reads. The History of Bees by Maja Lund. I read this for Women in Translation last month. This just came out at the end of September, and what can I say? I mean, it's gorgeous. There's that, and you know, bees. Besides which, this book was very much like Ninefold's Make a Paper Swan, in that there were 3 different storylines. So one storyline was set in the past, maybe sometime in the 1800s, and there's a guy that struggled with depression, and it affected his family a great deal, and he was a pseudoscientist. He wanted to be a scientist, but he needed to make a living, and so he began studying bees and was trying to make a new beehive. And then modern times was an actual beekeeper, and he dealt with the syndrome that's happening now, where bees are just vanishing from their hives. I think it's sudden collapse syndrome or something. Hive collapse syndrome, something to that effect. Read the book. And then the third storyline is in the future in China, and the whole world is in poverty. There's little food. It's just society has collapsed in many ways. China's a country that's doing the best because they kind of were more equipped to deal with it because bees are gone. There are no more bees, so our food supply just was cut off. So that being said, it's very interesting, very thought-provoking. Obviously, this book is talking about our environmental impact, which I very much agree with. The character lines, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't relate to. I didn't connect with the characters for various reasons. There was one girl in the earliest storyline that I really loved her, and I was frustrated for her. But the end, the way she brought the three storylines together was absolutely brilliant. It was so brilliant, and what she said at the very end, I totally cried buckets. And we have to do better. We do. We have to do better. So, then I read The Beginning of the World in the Middle of the Night by our very own Jen Campbell. And this was absolutely delightful. This is a short story collection. It's very eclectic, but it definitely feels like Jen. The fairy tale vibe is alive and well, and I expected that. But I loved the intellectual aspect of this book. It's very deep thinking and thought-provoking and intelligent, and I loved it. So you've got that aspect, and then all this whimsy, and there's just layers and layers and layers. So the stories are varied. Some of them are kind of experimental. I was just fascinated. Like, I could totally go back and read several of these stories again right now, and I just finished it a couple weeks ago. So, yay, and I can't wait. I think this is going to be published in November, on November 2nd, I think. And I have the real copy, this is a proof copy, coming, and I'll probably go back and read a couple of the stories then. So yes, top-notch story collection right there. And then finally this week I finished Caleb Carr's The Angel of Darkness. This is the second in his Alienist series. So these are, it's historical fiction, kind of mystery thriller, and they're set at the turn of the century, so late 1800, early 1900. And Teddy Roosevelt is working his way up the political chain. So in the first one, he was like head of the police force in New York City, and now he's actually working with the Navy in DC, but he makes a cameo in the end of this one. So you have the same characters, but this one is told from the perspective of the little boy that was in the first one. He's now 14, and it's told from his perspective. And I loved the characters. I love spending time with the characters again. And I like the crime scene investigations, like figuring out how to connect the crime to the killer. It's fascinating. So if you I don't remember I told you before, but this talks about the historical aspect is the very beginning of forensics and psychology in the criminal investigations. So very interesting historically. It was kind of slow. It's a 600-page book, and it's kind of slow the first 100 pages when they're setting up the storyline. And then it got really interesting. And then the last third, there was another slow scene, the courtroom drama that I don't always enjoy that. So I got a little bit bored with that. But then the ending, if you watch my vlog that I just posted, wow. He had some great plot twists in the end. I'm just going to tell you that. So very enjoyable, and I'm happy to tell my sister that I really loved this book. This is one of her favorites. The Alienist is her favorite, but she's a nurse, and if she's into all that gory stuff, so if you read The Alienist, you would know why she loves that one so much. Okay, and then the last one I got is The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a Ship of Her Own Making. These are so charming. There's 5 of them. I've only read the first so far. This is a middle grades fantasy, high fantasy, set in fairyland, so they're fairies. And this is not a dragon, it's a wyvern. Wyverns don't have front legs. I learned these things. This is just so imaginative. It's probably the most imaginative, whimsical thing that I have ever read in my life. The characters are so diverse, and yeah, it's fabulous. It's fabulous. It's very much written for adults to enjoy. Like I said, it's a middle grades novel, but totally adult as well. Highly recommend. I'm looking forward to reading these. And it's not so fast paced. Like a lot of times with fantasy series, I just have to read them back to back, and I don't feel that way with this one. The stories are a little, at least with the first one, the story's a little more self-contained, so I think I can get through my spooky and Victorian reads in October and maybe wait and pick one up in November. But I mean, I'm not saying it's not fabulous. It is. It's just not, oh, I gotta read it now kind of thing. But yeah, great books. So off to a great start with September, and I hope to be back in another week or so with some more finished reads. Thanks for watching, and I will be back soon. Bye.